I can make it stream.
Okay. Now I'm going to hit the record button and we are good. Welcome. My name is Steve Stein. I'm the founder of BetterListen and WisdomFeed and WisdomFeed Plus, our new online community that is helping to organize this. And we're excited today to have Shamash Alidina live teaching us Intro to Breathing for Stress and Anxiety Relief. And welcome everyone watching the stream, everyone who's on the call, and welcome Shamash. This is exciting. We're pulling this together. Welcome everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us. Um, so yeah, I'll dive straight in. Thank you so much, Steve, for organizing this. Um, so my name's Shamash. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use some slides as I talk, just to make it a little bit easier for myself and then easier for you to understand the concepts I'm sharing. But let's keep it interactive as well. So, if there's something that I share that you find interesting, feel free to drop a comment. If you have any questions that come up, again, I'll keep an eye on the comments, and if it's relevant to what I'm talking about or linked to what I'm talking about, I might just answer it there and then. So just try and imagine that we're kind of together, perhaps in person, and you're with a teacher, and it's totally okay for us to have this kind of flowing conversation as I go through this. And I think that'll make it more fun if we bring the interactive element in. So let me just share some of these slides to make it a bit easier for myself as well. So here we go. So here's a couple of the books that I've done, but just share a little bit about my background, just so you know where I'm coming from. So after school, I went to study engineering, actually. I wasn't doing anything to do with mindfulness or breathing or anything to do with that. Um, but when I tried it as a job in the summer, I didn't enjoy it, and I knew that something was missing. And I ended up going to a philosophy class. And when I went to this philosophy class, they had this very short 5-minute exercise in mindfulness, which blew my mind. And I thought, this is so good. Every child should learn this. And why am I so old learning this when I was aged 21 or 22 at that time? So I got into mindfulness, and I became a school teacher where all the children do meditation. And so my first 10 years of working was actually working in a school where the children did mindfulness and meditation. There was a 5 or 10 minute session in the morning and in the afternoon. And we even did some kind of philosophy classes with them, and some Eastern philosophy stuff we taught them too. And then after 10 years of doing that, the last 14 years since I stopped teaching children was trans kind of moving into teaching adults. So I've always focused on education, and this time it's education more for adults. And it has been mostly kind of mindfulness and a thing called ACT, acceptance and commitment training, or acceptance and commitment therapy. And I'm always looking for kind of new ways or new angles to teach things. And just 2 or 3 years ago, one of my friends mentioned that he read a book called Breath by James Nestor. And I thought, oh yeah, I've been doing mindful breathing for years. Is there anything new here for me to learn? But he recommended it, so I picked it up. And it was a really, really good book. It was filled, every page was filled with information about things about breathing that I didn't know about. I just thought, if you become mindful of your breath, it's a powerful process. It's wonderful and it's transformative. I had no idea of the importance of breathing in certain ways, the power of certain breathing exercises, and how it can impact almost every single area of your life. And so I got very passionate about it, and I went to some retreats with James Nestor, and I've done some other trainings from other of these breathing experts. And I'm actually now, how I've written, as you can see, there's Mindfulness for Dummies that I've written there. But now I'm writing one as part of the For Dummies series to do with breathing exercises. So I'm getting into it more and more, and sharing it as well. The reason why I was particularly amazed by it, and in terms of some of the benefits that I got from it, was to do with sleep. What I found was that my nose was getting quite easily blocked, and I used to quite often wake up and either feel as if I haven't had a good sleep, or maybe there would be a headache there, and then my focus wouldn't be quite right. And then the meditation practice would help with that, maybe because it's almost semi as if it's helping me to catch up with my sleep and partly helping to improve my focus. But through the stuff that I'm going to share with you today, I found that it was quite beneficial. And then when things like sleep improves and you're not waking up with a headache, that starts to have so many different beneficial effects. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat as well, so if you've got any questions. So I'll share with you a few facts. You may not have counted it, but we breathe about 20,000 times a day. Some people breathe a bit faster and some people breathe a bit slower. One of the things that they've found is as time has gone by in the last few decades or maybe even century, people seem to be breathing a little bit faster and taking in, not just faster, but taking in more air. And you'd think that would be good. You're taking in more oxygen. But if you just tried right now breathing faster, you'll probably find yourself getting kind of perhaps even a little bit anxious. And I'll explain a little bit later why that is. But we breathe about 20,000 times a day. And that's about 500 million times in our lifetimes. I'm sure you managed to calculate that in your head. So it's a lot of times that we breathe. And one of the reasons I'm sharing that is that imagine if you made a 1 or 2% improvement in your breathing. Just every now and then you brought more awareness to your breathing. You breathe in a way that's perhaps a bit more correct. And I'll explain what it means to breathe correctly or in a functional way rather than a dysfunctional way. That small improvement can make a huge difference. I was talking to another kind of big breathing expert who's actually talked about in the book by James Nestor, a guy called Patrick McEwen. By serendipity, I was talking to him this morning, and he was telling me that 75% of people with anxiety have some sort of dysfunctional breathing. So, rather than just being conscious of your breathing or being mindful, maybe you need to make some sort of adjustments to the way that you breathe. And maybe it's the breathing rate that might be driving some of that anxiety that you're experiencing. So a different angle to what you may not normally think about when we think about mental health and anxiety, which I think is interesting. So first of all, just be aware of how you're breathing right now, just without even changing your posture. You may be in all sorts of different situations, but just notice how you're sitting right now. If you're naturally slouching, which so many of us do, that kind of closes up our chest and it makes it a bit harder to breathe deeply. So just notice that. If you want to adjust it, you can. It's up to you, but just notice that. And just bring some awareness to your breath. It's a bit harder for me to do because I'm speaking at the same time. But as you're sitting here, notice how you're breathing. Is it deep or shallow in the sense that are you breathing lower down into your abdomen, or is it more in your chest? So bring some awareness to that and see if we can do it in a non-judgmental way. That's the first little exercise I'm inviting you to do. And then, as I mentioned, when we're sitting up, it's easier for the air to get into our lungs. There's literally more space in the lungs to be filled. If we're slouching, it's going to affect that. So just notice that too. And even more importantly, as you're sitting or perhaps you're walking, passively, you're in a passive state in some sense because you're listening to me. Are you breathing with your nose or your mouth? Notice that as well. Maybe your nose is blocked, so you're having to breathe with your mouth a bit more. So just noticing that. I'm going to talk to you about why that's important. So one of the things that I got shocked when I studied breathing is why mouth breathing actually causes a huge amount of issues. So what's happened in the last few hundreds of years is that we've changed the foods that we eat. We used to eat food that was quite hard to eat, think about vegetables like raw vegetables or meat or whatever it was. We had to chew a lot. And when you chew a lot, it makes your jaw stronger and it actually ensures that your airways are a little bit larger, so it's easier to breathe. But if you look at the diet of human beings, think about what you had today. Okay, maybe for breakfast, you may have had something like a cereal or a porridge or maybe eggs. At lunch, you may have had a soup or smoothie. Just think about it. It's almost like baby food, isn't it? It's so soft. The food is so soft. And so we're not exercising our jaw. And because of this change of our diet, amazingly, it's actually made our mouth smaller and our airway smaller. So what's happened in the last, again, few hundred years is that our teeth have started to get crooked. And that is because our mouths are becoming so small, there's not space for the teeth. If you look at the skulls of human beings, I think more than 500 years old, you'll see that all the teeth are straight. That's a bit weird. They didn't have any orthodontics then. They're not having their teeth being pulled out. They're just naturally. And if you look at in the animal kingdom, they don't need to go to the orthodontist. That's what we call it in the UK. I think you call it the same in the US. Um, you know, so why is this happening now? And what happens after that is that once you get some of your teeth pulled out to maybe get your teeth straight, your kind of the rest of your teeth straightened, that can actually end up causing your face to become even smaller, your teeth, because you've got less teeth, and then you use braces, it actually kind of makes things even smaller and the airways become even narrower. So what happens is as the airways get narrower, we struggle to easily breathe at daytime, but also at nighttime. And so we have huge amounts of the population that are snoring. And it's so common, we think of it as a normal thing. But if you think about it, when you're snoring, you're struggling to get the air into your body. You're struggling to breathe properly. And then things like sleep apnea, where you actually kind of you're almost holding your breath because and you stop breathing for quite a while, and then suddenly you take a deep breath. You're not getting a good sleep in that state. And this kind of whole process starts from when we're really young. Um, Now, I've got this picture of this book because there was this guy called George Catlin, and he was fascinated by the Native Americans, and he went to visit. I think it might be 100 years old or more. This book that he wrote, but he was fascinated by these different tribes, and some of these tribes that he went to, he noticed that were very healthy. They were kind of taller, they were stronger, their faces were formed in a more beautiful way. And he thought about what are they doing differently compared to everyone else? And he came to the conclusion that it was nasal breathing that they were doing. And what they were teaching the mothers when the child was young or the baby was young, they used to ensure that the baby did nasal breathing. So if they saw that the baby was breathing with their mouth, let's say when the baby was sleeping, they would just gently close the lips to encourage nasal breathing. And they probably continued to say that to the young children. And so they found that if you're not breathing with your nose, then as when you're young, you tend to kind of grow, your actual physical face becomes a little bit more narrow and your airways become a bit narrower. So, this all this I didn't know about, I was fascinated about. So, you know, it's one of these things about if you don't use it, you lose it. And so no matter what age you are, when you start to become more conscious about your breathing and you try to breathe more with your nose rather than your mouth, it's going to have so many benefits. You're more likely to do nasal breathing at nighttime. You're going to have some other benefits I'm going to share in a moment. So if you think about all the different things in your mouth, what have you got? You've got your teeth. That's not to do with breathing. That's to do with chewing. You've got your tongue. That's to do with taste, nothing to do with breathing. You've got the upper palate, the lower palate. All the design of the mouth is nothing to do with breathing. It's to do with digestion and food. It doesn't filter any bacteria or viruses. One of the things that they should have told us during the pandemic is to actually breathe with our nose, because of the nose is designed to catch bacteria and viruses. So you have a better chance of being well and getting less sick if you breathe with your nose. That's another benefit of it. The thing is, when you breathe with your mouth, because your mouth obviously is much larger than your nasal passages, it leads to over breathing. Now you'd think, why would that be a problem if I was breathing too much? But actually, we've got a very fine balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And if the balance is wrong, the oxygen it can get into our blood, but it can't actually get into our tissues and in the cells in our body. So again, if you did an experiment right now where you started breathing very fast, you wouldn't feel comfortable. You tend to feel more comfortable when you breathe slower, slightly slower rather than too fast. So over breathing actually creates a little bit of this sense of anxiety. So again, what happens is if you're doing mouth breathing, you're over breathing. There's too much air coming in and you're losing that right balance between carbon dioxide and oxygen. So that becomes a problem. Another interesting thing that I was surprised to learn, and maybe this is one of the reasons for tooth decay, because you might have found maybe you don't even eat that many sweets or sugar, but you have some problem with tooth decay. If you're the kind of person that's kind of snoring a lot at night time and you think that you wake up in the morning and your mouth is dry, what's happening is that you're creating a more of an acidic environment in your mouth. So tooth decay is more likely as well through this mouth breathing. Another experiment you can do right now, if you put one hand on your chest, one hand on your abdomen, lower down, and then if you breathe in through your nose, you might notice that there's more of your abdomen expanding, the lower part of your body, your torso, where your belly is. But if you breathe in through your mouth just once as an experiment, you may notice that it's your chest that fills up more. So there's shallow breathing. And our lungs, they're kind of like a triangle. It's kind of narrow at the top. It looks like it's wide, but it's more narrow at the top because if you imagine it's a tube here, and it's narrow and then it gets wider as you go down. Stand up a bit so you can get this. So it's narrow here and it kind of widens up. It's like a triangle. And so when you breathe lower down, it's easier for your lungs to kind of absorb that oxygen, get into your body and make you feel comfortable. So mouth breathing doesn't enable that, but nasal breathing does. I've mentioned about the snoring. One of the things that I found that helps me, I don't know if I've got it, having read one of the breathing books, is, yes, I got one here. I use them quite a lot. So there's a couple of things. People talk about kind of mouth tape. I'll maybe talk about that in the future. But there's also, because my nose is naturally a little bit too, the kind of gets blocked quite easily here. And so you can get these nasal strips, they're called. Looks like this. And I just stick it on, literally stick it on at nighttime here. And if I do that, I talked about how we breathe 500 million times in our lifetime. Even if it helps 1 or 2%, you're going to get a little bit more oxygen going into your body. You're going to feel a little bit better. But for me, that makes a big difference if I put that on at nighttime. I don't know if anybody else here, maybe you can let me know in the chat if you or your partner or friends use these kind of nasal strips. This one's called Respire, but there's many different makes. That makes a difference, and that I think reduces my snoring and makes me feel a bit more comfortable. And I wake up in the morning less likely to have those headaches. So mouth breathing, as I've mentioned, not a good thing. And then this session is talking about breath and how it links to stress. So one way you can very simply help to kind of reduce your stress response is to become a bit more conscious of your breathing and try to do more nasal breathing. Thea says here, I tried it for my family and my husband and daughter liked it and find it helpful. Oh, great. I'm glad that you've tried it and it's working. Cool. So, okay, let's move on. So, in terms of nasal breathing and its benefits, first of all, you get 20% more oxygen. Now, there's some top athletes are starting to realize that nasal breathing is better for you than mouth breathing, even when they're doing, 100 meters or they're doing a marathon or something like that. It's harder though. So one of the things, if you do exercise regularly, is to try and breathe with your nose rather than your mouth. Now, most people think, oh, you have to breathe to your mouth because you're running so fast. But it's more to do with practice. And the thing to do is to reduce the rate at which you're exercising. So let's say if you walk briskly, you can't do it with nasal breathing. You start breathing with your mouth. Slow down your walking. And when you slow down your walking, do your nasal breathing. And then gradually with practice, you'll be able to do faster and faster walking with the nasal breathing, which is really good for your health. It boosts the blood flow to your heart. The coronary artery is the artery that's actually supplying blood to the heart. You're catching the 20 billion particles from the air every day, which is going to be fantastic. If you're walking in cold air or warm air, your lungs are very sensitive organ. And so you need to have the air at the right temperature. And one of the functions of the nose, which has evolved over millions of years, is to warm the air at the right temperature, to condition it, humidify it, so it's not too dry. It also pressurizes the air. So many benefits of breathing through your nose. And then the pH of the blood is really sensitively kind of managed by your body. And the amount of carbon dioxide affects the pH of your blood. And that's what determines whether the oxygen gets released into the other cells in your body. And you'll find that when you breathe nasally, that will help to maintain that. And one of the things, if we have time, we'll talk about this diaphragmatic breathing. It's much healthier than chest breathing, and nasal breathing will help with that too. So many reasons for doing nasal breathing. And one of my favorite reasons for breathing with the nose is this chemical called nitric oxide. It sounds like it's something that's not a good thing, but it's actually a very good thing for our health. In fact, nitric oxide, somebody actually won the Nobel Prize for discovering the many benefits of nitric oxide. And nitric oxide doesn't get released when you breathe in your mouth. It gets released when you breathe through your nose. And this nitric oxide goes into your lungs and it opens up the different vessels in the lungs, and it also gets into your blood and it opens up the arteries in your blood. And it also helps to kind of kill some of these bacteria that are harmful for you as well. So nitric oxide is a fantastic thing, and it occurs naturally in your body. It's made naturally by your nose. And because we've evolved to breathe through your nose, if you're not breathing through your nose, you're missing out on all those benefits. So nitric oxide is a big one. And I'm going to share with you a cool way to boost the amount of nitric oxide. Now, this is a little bit of an aside, but I never knew this, but the nostrils actually alternate between one and the other in terms of which one is open. We have a thing called the nasal cycle. And you might just think, oh, well, one nostril is blocked sometimes and the other nostril is blocked sometimes. Turns out this is being designed, this is happening throughout the animal kingdom, not just human beings. And one nostril opens and the other nostril opens. And it cycles between one and the other between half an hour and 3 hours. And amazingly, this is being used by your body to maintain your blood pressure and your temperature. I mean, how clever is that? One nostril is more about increasing your blood pressure. The other one is more to slightly reduce it, to maintain the temperature of your body. And there is even some evidence about how the left nostril, is more connected to right brain type thinking. And your right nostril is more connected to left brain type thinking. So, this as the nose kind of cycles between one and the other, there's this balance being created, this homeostasis. It's a beautiful thing that's naturally happening. Again, if you're doing mouth breathing, you're missing out on all this fun that could be happening. And I was amazed by that. I mean, I thought this is something that was written about in ancient scripts, I think, as well, about how it kind of cycles between one and the other, and it has different benefits. But I would have thought, how could one side of your nose be connected to the other side of the brain? But I guess there's nerve endings there, and it's something that they've discovered in research as well. So fascinating. Now, if this is all well and good and say, thanks, Shamash, for telling me about all this, but my nose is blocked. So, I can't do anything about that. And now, first thing is that the more you start to become aware of this, and the more you start to breathe with your nose, it starts to be naturally a bit clearer. Okay, because we don't naturally use our nose all the time, it gets blocked up a bit more easily. So using it helps. But you can just check right now, pretty simple, if your nose is blocked. And we can do this little experiment right now, which is a nose unblocking technique. Okay. And so as long as you're not pregnant at the moment or you haven't got any kind of serious health conditions, you can do this exercise. And this exercise is a mini breath hold. It's a little bit more than mini. It's like a medium length breath hold. And the way you do it is you're gonna close your mouth, and we're also gonna kind of basically hold our breath for 20 seconds or so. We're gonna close our nostrils. So just first of all, notice how blocked your nose is. So just breathe in and out a few times. It may not be blocked at all, and you may not want to do this, but whether it's blocked or not, you might want to try this as an experiment. Okay, so just breathe in and out naturally a couple of times. And then after your next out breath, just close your nose and hold your nose. And as you're holding it, just gently move your head up and down or left and right a little bit just to create some movement. And continue to hold your nose until you feel a medium sense of discomfort. Like there's, not as soon, don't open straight away, but when there's this medium need that, oh, I need to breathe, release your nose and then just breathe in and out gently. Okay, it might be 10 seconds, it may be 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Just gently breathe and notice how that feels. And usually you need to do this about 3 times. We'll do this at least one more time, but just breathing in and out comfortably. Remember, after we release the nose, you don't take a massive breath in, very gentle, and just keep breathing in and out from your nose. So when you're ready, breathing in gently, breathing out gently, and then holding your nose. And again, just gently moving your head side to side as you're holding your nose, up and down. And first of all, it will be a mild sense of air hunger, and that's okay. Continue to hold your nose, and then gradually, after 10 or 20 or 30 seconds, you'll get this medium sense of air hunger and the sense that, oh, I really need to breathe in now. And then when you get that sense, releasing it, gently breathing in and out. Now, we've only done this twice, but sometimes you need to do it 3 or 4 times. But maybe someone could share in the chat or using the audio. How was that experience? Any questions, or did you notice anything? Or have you tried it before, maybe, and you found it to work? Let us know. I'll just wait a moment to see if anyone says anything. Worked on the second time. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so magic. Yes, Michelle. It is a bit magic, actually. I'm not sure. They don't really know exactly why it works, but it does seem to work. It's definitely worked for me when I've tried it in the past. Ah, Kathy says it feels like I have more oxygen now. Wow. Worked the second time. If it's starting to work for you the second time, have another go. You know how to do it now. Wait for that medium sense. If you can feel that sense of air hunger, which is an interesting term, that sense of, oh, I need to breathe in, then release, breathe in. And if it worked for you, then maybe doing it at nighttime as well, in the early evening before you go to sleep, and it might help you to sleep at night. Steve says, I got a little nervous holding my breath, but felt a rush of aliveness after the big in breath. Yeah, yeah. Try and maybe then you went a little bit too far with holding the breath. Don't hold it for quite as long. Because if you don't want to have a big breath in, you just want to have a gentle breath in after the breath hold. So you might have gone just a little bit too much. Actually, breath holds are quite good exercise. I thought, I know, breath holds are not that good for you. When you're holding your breath unconsciously, a lot of us do that. Apparently, when we're on our computers and our phones, we're holding our breath, and that's actually not good for you. But when you do it consciously, there's a load of health benefits for it, interestingly. So this is one way of clearing your nose. There's another fun way and a fascinating way of clearing your nose. And again, this involves no tissues, which is great. And the answer is humming, believe it or not. Uh, this is an amazing fact, and some people have used this to help them with some diseases that people have had as well, is using humming. When you hum, you can feel the vibration kind of in your face, and you can actually feel the vibration around your nose quite often. And when they've measured the amount of oxide being released by your nose, it's a massive 15 times more when you do some humming. So when I guide my breathing classes once a week, we often do some humming, and many people say that they really like it. So it has this beneficial effect. So yeah, I think we could try some humming. So you can try it anytime. You could hum to any tune that you want, but we can actually maybe do 3 or 5 breaths where we kind of do a hum, and let's see what that feels like. So sitting comfortably if you are seated, and just literally breathing in and then just humming in this way. And you can play around with the tone for what's good for you, but just and see if you can try different tones. So maybe do a lower tone. I'll mute myself and just to have it do a couple more rounds yourself, just gently breathing in and humming as you breathe out. Steve's asked a good question here. So it's not doing an ohm sound or humming a tune. Actually, it works for that too. So you can, and maybe this is part of why things like ohm and other mantras have evolved, because these vibrations actually have a positive effect on our body. And in fact, the sound ohm is quite interesting, because if you open your mouth and you just say ah, and then you gradually close your mouth, it vibrates in different parts of your body. You can feel it. First, it vibrates more in your stomach with the ah, and then the O is more slightly higher up, maybe in your chest, and the kind of the M part of AUM, which is another way of spelling ohm, is kind of vibrating around our face. So fascinating. Um, and yeah, it has this kind of positive effects. Another funny link to this is when when you're eating something delicious, what sound do you make? You go, that's really nice, don't you? And that sound that you do, that's actually releasing oxide. And that nitric oxide is making you feel more relaxed and more calm and soothed more. Uh, David said something interesting. He says, I always hum and my nose was open, but my headache is now gone too. Oh, wow. So many benefits people are having already. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Michelle's actually observed something interesting. She says, I find I take much longer breaths with the hum. I've noticed that too. I've actually not read that anywhere, but I've observed it myself, and I'm glad that you've shared that. I think you're absolutely right. It slows down our out breath, and a slower out breath is linked to our relaxation response. So maybe this is a positive side effect of doing humming breath, because of what you're doing. Another name for this kind of breathing, vibration breathing, or it's sometimes called resistance breathing. You're slowing down your out breath. For anyone who's done yoga before and you've done the pranayama part of yoga, there's also a type of breathing called ujjayi breath, or ocean breath, and where you make this kind of sound of the ocean as you're breathing out. And that's again creating resistance. You're slowing down the out breath. And I reckon that vibration also has a positive effect. This humming breath, again, linking this to yoga, because a lot of these breathing exercises are thousands of years old, and some of them come from the type of yoga called pranayama. It's called the bumblebee breath, I think it's called, where you kind of close your eyes and you put your fingers in your ears. And you might want to just try this once because it's so powerful. It's the vibration is so loud and it feels like there's a bumblebee. But try doing a hum, like sound with your fingers in your ear, just gently in your ears. You can actually hear my if you tried that, you probably can't hear me now if you're doing it right now. But hopefully you could feel it almost feels like it's filling your whole skull. And if you're feeling like you're overthinking and you're feeling quite stressed, imagine just doing that a few times and all that vibration and all the nitric oxide that comes from that, plus probably other benefits we don't even know about at the moment. So wonderful. Cool. Thank you for trying that out. So that's humming, and feel free to hum tunes throughout the day, and that's going to help you to feel better. And then this exercise, quite a famous one, and a very powerful one for engaging the relaxation response, which is the opposite of the stress response. And it's not about changing your breathing so much, but more to do with the depth of your breathing. So I don't think I have a image here, but our diaphragm is a circular muscle. People think it's kind of just at the front of your body, but think of it more like an umbrella. Okay, and imagine this umbrella going up and down, like opening up and kind of flattening out. Okay, so not like a normal umbrella, but it becomes like a dome and then it flattens out. And so it's this huge sheet of muscle on the lower part, near the lower part of our ribs. And when you breathe in, that goes down if you're breathing in doing diaphragmatic breathing. And as babies and young children, we did this naturally. If you look at a young child or a baby breathing, you'll see that their abdomen or their stomach is kind of expanding and contracting. Their belly is expanding and contracting, sometimes called belly breathing, abdominal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, different words for the same thing. But it's much easier for you to breathe when you do that. Less effort, so less energy is being used. Um, and this is I'm going to share with you a clever way of noticing if you're doing diaphragmatic breathing. So you don't put your hands like usually people put their hands on their belly or their lower abdomen, but you can actually push your belly in and out without doing any breathing at all. So it's not a very good test. So let me show you a better test for doing this. And it's you feel your lower ribs, the last kind of couple of ribs, and you put your hands like that. So just feel where your lower ribs are, and then just put the sides of your hands kind of like that. So they're kind of gently, not squashing it in, but feeling it. And with your hands there, lower your shoulders, so keep your shoulders relaxed, and then breathe in through your nose and encourage your hands to be just pushed out like that, just a little bit. And then breathing out, your hands just going in slightly. So see if you can practice doing that. Let's try and doing that for 5 breaths and see if we can get that diaphragm to move down, which makes the lower rib cage expand out and in. Taking a nice long out breath will help you. Breathing in, the lower ribs expand outwards a little. Breathing out, the lower ribs contract inwards. See if you can keep the rest of your body relatively relaxed. Breathing in lower ribs expanding. Breathing out, contracting. Good. So what happens is that due to all the different stresses and things that we go through in our lives, we can end up doing reverse breathing. So rather than when we breathe in, our ribs expanding, it does the opposite, and we do a shallow breath. We breathe into our chest. And then when you breathe out, you just breathe out of your chest. And so then your diaphragm is not working. And that diaphragm is what makes it much easier to breathe. It lowers your stress response. It makes you feel more at ease. And so if you're not naturally doing that, it's going to take some practice. You have to do some retraining, in a way, unlearning, because you may have picked up the habit due to all the things that you've gone through in your life to breathe in a more shallow way. Are there any kind of questions or comments from this exercise that we did? Did anybody manage to feel their lower ribs expanding just a little bit? Could be like a centimeter or something as you breathe in and back in. Anybody notice that? Yeah, Christine says yes. Great, thumbs up. I love that. Thanks, Kathy. How about others? Did some of you find that it didn't move at all, or how was it? The other interesting way of practicing this is to actually lie down on the floor or on a yoga mat or maybe a firm bed. And then you can put one hand on your chest and the other hand on your lower abdomen or your belly. And you just try to encourage the lower hand to go up and down. Your chest doesn't need to go up and down much at all. It's more your lower abdomen. So you can practice doing that. And that's kind of really good for your health. And then another way of doing it is you're lying down and you actually put a book, any book on your stomach area, and you want to encourage that book to go up and down. So that's another way of training yourself. Okay, so that's diaphragmatic breathing and encouraging the diaphragm to move. We'll touch on one more technique and then we'll have some Q&A. And this is about breathing slower. And the reason we need to breathe slower is that we need to have the right amount of carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide has had a bad rap, and the problem is in the atmosphere, it's increasing. But in our bodies, if we had no carbon dioxide, we wouldn't survive. And the reason is that it's the level of it's actually carbon dioxide that helps to release the oxygen from the blood to go into the cells. Okay, that's the only way the cells are able to tell the oxygen, come in here and feed me. So we need to have the right amount of carbon dioxide. And when you breathe too fast, what happens is we breathe out too much carbon dioxide, and that leads to this kind of feeling of anxiety. Maybe your hands and feet get colder, your circulation doesn't feel quite right, and it's hard to focus because if you're not getting enough oxygen going into your brain, so you feel all the time, feel like you can't focus on one thing at a time. All the things that, and in fact, a whole range of different ailments. If you imagine, if your cells are not getting enough oxygen, it can lead to all sorts of different problems too. So we need to get the oxygen to get into our blood, into our cells. And so we need to breathe slightly less than slightly more. Weirdly, it's the over breathing that can cause a lot of issues. And as I said, talking to this breathing expert this morning, he says up to potentially 75% of people who are having problems with stress and anxiety are dysfunctional breathers. So you might be not doing the diaphragmatic breathing, or breathing very fast or very shallow. And so making those changes or adjustments to your breathing can have a knock-on effect on all those other areas of your body and life. So one technique that's been developed, which is an ancient technique that again has been practiced for thousands of years, and it's probably the best of all the breathing exercises, I would say. It's the one exercise that if you wanted to teach people one technique, one breathing exercise that's more powerful than any other, It's probably one of the easiest to do, and it has the most beneficial effects. I would say it's this coherent breathing. Sometimes it's called resonance breathing. Sometimes it's called heart coherence breathing. If you've heard of the company Heart Math, they also encourage this rate of breathing. There's loads of research. And then the amazing thing that I discovered through reading this book is that when they looked at ancient chants and they noticed the breathing rate generated by the ancient chants is almost exactly at this breathing rate of 6 breaths per minute. So 6 breaths per minute is roughly 5 seconds in breath and a 5 seconds out breath. But another simple way of saying that is just slowing down your breathing, because people may be having naturally 10 breaths a minute or 12 breaths a minute or more. So you just need to just slow it down a little bit. And that's what coherent breathing is. And what happens is called coherent breathing is because your breathing, your lungs and your heart, they start to kind of get in sync. They start to get into coherence. You get this beautiful balance between your heart and your lungs, and it feels wonderful. Now, although I say 6 breaths a minute, it varies from person to person, the exact rate, because of people have got different sizes bodies. Some people are taller, some people are shorter. So you can imagine people's lungs are a different size. And just like different instruments, they make different sounds. Like a cello makes a deeper sound and a violin will make a higher pitched noise. Same with each human body is slightly different. And so the exact number might be 5 breaths or 5.5 or 6.5. It may vary a little bit. But what they found is that when you start breathing at this slow rate and it feels good to you, you're probably almost certainly breathing at this coherent rate. So I will guide you in this just for a minute or two, and we'll try it, and then let's see how that feels. So let's do a minute of this coherent breathing. Now, if you can, also doing the diaphragmatic breathing with this. So we're going to breathe from our nose rather than our mouths, and you know about why that's important now. And if you want, you could put one hand on your chest, one hand on your lower abdomen to just notice. You want the lower hand to move rather than the chest. And it might be easier for you to close your eyes when you do this too, to really get into it. So breathing out, and then I'll count in to give you a sense of it. So, and then breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now go at your own pace, breathing in just gently and slowly, and then breathing out gently and slowly. Might be just slightly slower than you're normally used to. You might want to combine it with a little smile of gratitude that you've got the time to do this practice right now. Encouraging that air to get lower down in your lungs if you can. And remember, with your out breath, you don't need to force it out. Just let the breath fall out of your body. And once it's all fallen out, you naturally breathe in, you draw the air in, and then again, just let it fall out. So it's like a beautiful natural cycle, just like the waves in the ocean that rise and fall. Wonderful. So maybe just doing one more round, in and out. And that's it for coherent breathing. So thank you for trying that out. I'll stop sharing this screen so we can see each other. There's some of you. I'm just seeing in the comments here, Michelle saying that when I start to get the first signs of a migraine, I breathe very slowly through the nose and it stops. Wow. Somebody who's doing my mindfulness teacher training just finished it recently, and she had migraines for years. And she tried many things. And for her, the mindfulness meditation really helped her and it stopped it. Great. So that's it from me for this little introduction. I was talking to Steve, and we thought that we would offer a little mini course on breathing, so you can go a bit deeper into each of these techniques and some others. So we'll probably email you a link when that's ready if you want to sign up to that. But I'm here for a few more minutes at least. So please, if you have any questions, then let us know, or any comments about how you found it. Was it a
I have a question.
breathtaking experience?
I have a question. So I
Yes,
used to
David.
do like high intense cardio, and when we would get winded, the instructor taught us to breathe in through our nose, but also to turn to each side, like three inhale exhales from this side, three inhales exhales from this side, and three inhales exhales from your chest up, and from breathe in to calm your body down. Your heart would be out of rhythm, your mind, everything would be from the high intensity. And that
Yeah.
would pull you back into where your heart rhythm and your breathing rhythm and everything would come to focus.
Wow, that's it. That sounds really. And did that used to work for you?
Yeah, well, yes.
You did, yeah. All right, I'll
But I
note
was
that.
just
That's
curious.
good.
My question on it was what was the turning? Do you know anything about the turning to the left, turning to the right, and then breathing from your, I guess it was like the diaphragm or abdomen, because you're putting your head and compressing, stretching and coming up.
Yeah, the certainly when you kind of go like that, you're opening up your chest, so you're kind of creating more space in your lungs. I'm not sure about looking left and right, but
Okay.
there's many different techniques, and that could be one that I just don't know about, which is also beneficial. There's hundreds of them, so that's really interesting. Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for sharing that. Um, Leslie says, I think the turning would stimulate the left and right nostrils. Yeah, maybe. Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, potentially. I think it does have an effect. Yeah, like breathing and looking left and right. It's bound to have some sort of effect that I don't know about. But that's obviously yoga's got all sorts of different stretches where you turn your body one way and the other, and that's obviously linked to breathing as well. So it might be something to do with that. Might have to do some research on that. I like that question. Interesting. Interesting.
There's a quote that there's let's there's a quote. I'm not sure why it's not going to me, but there's a quote that I've heard that says that the way you breathe reflects the way you live. So if you breathe shallow, you live shallow, and not literally, but
Yeah.
if you have even like if I'm big on etymology, but if you have a zest for life, I bet if you
Yeah.
look up the word zest, there's breathing involved with it. But you
Well, talking about etymology, like it's linked to inspiration. Think about when you breathe in, it's inspire, and breathing out, expire. So
exactly.
in to be inspired. So and the word spiritus, the word spirit and spiritus means to breathe. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Etymology.
Um, Nefesh.
Say again?
Nefesh.
Ah,
Nefesh.
nefesh.
Is it Arabic or Hebrew or something for breathing?
Nefesh, right?
Yeah, nefesh. Yeah.
Ah. And what does that mean?
Well, it's the way you were talking about the breathing of spirits. Spirits.
Yeah, yeah. Breathing is
Very
it's such
good. Yeah,
a
the
fascinating topic.
nefesh is the breath of life.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That links nicely with everything we were talking about today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so thanks everyone for showing up and people watching the stream. And we're gonna do a deeper dive towards the end of January, and that'll be a three-part workshop where it'll be, I guess, a little more experiential, and I'm sure you'll
Mm.
pick some other tricks out of your bag of breath tricks. And
Best tricks, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll send more information about that, and then if people are interested, they
all
can join
right.
in.
So
Cool.
anything else, Shamash? How can people find you?
My website is my name, shamashalidina.com. So feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions based on what I've shared today. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah.
And where we have BetterListen.com where our audios are, and we're going to have Shamash's some audios from him, and also WisdomFeed.com is kind of our growing hub for our kind of workshop and other offerings. So
What was the betterwhat.com?
Better Listen. I could
Better list. All right, thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and you'll get some emails. Oh, Eve is just here for the end of it. Okay. So thanks everyone for showing up, and hopefully we'll see you for the more in-depth, deeper dive in the new year. So happy and healthy end of this year. Thanks for showing up, and we'll catch you on the other side of New Year's, I guess.
Yes, yeah. Enjoy nice, slow, deep breathing through your holiday season.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of other things, but it gets a little quiet. We have some other things on Wisdom Feed. You'll hear about that as well. So good stuff. And any last word, or are we good?
Keep breathing, people. Keep breathing. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.